Hunter, back up.
Just trying to bat kind of hurt my wrist.
Back up.
Woo! Dad's on TV! You go, Dad! Go, Daddy! Go, Daddy!
Woo!
Woo!
Take his head off. All right. Yeah.
Good job.
Ooh. Good job. Woo! Good job. Good follow through. Yes. Oh.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the pre-party with me, J-Cal, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Like I said, my name is J-Cal, and I'm here every single Tuesday to talk to you, that hashtag NWA fam, every Tuesday, the hour before Power, too sweet to be sour. By God, one of the best NWA podcasts on this side of the Mississippi. My name is Jake, like I said, and hey guys, how is your week going? Well, yesterday, to celebrate the 15th anniversary of what we like to call the Alliance Guys podcast, your boy J-Cal was at Angel Stadium, hitting a few balls off of Mickey Hatcher, and I had a blast doing it. I hope you guys liked watching that video. Mostly it was just me trying to brag a little bit. But 15 years, man. I've been talking to the NWA fam for 15 years via podcasting, via Blog Talk Radio, then to Anchor and YouTube, and so many different platforms that we've tried over the years. I'm iTunes and Sketcher, and we're still available on most of those platforms today. You can still hear the Alliance Guys on most of those platforms if you prefer to listen as opposed to watch. But man, we've been doing this for 15 years now, and it's pretty cool. It's kind of crazy because 15 years ago when I started doing the podcast for the NWA, I thought, wow, this is a oversaturated market. I think everyone's doing podcasts now. I guess I was still kind of early 15 years ago, because now it feels like everyone's doing a podcast. But even back then, we were talking NWA. We were, I remember the very first episode, which was awful. It might be up somewhere, but hopefully not. I spent about 15 minutes just talking about Blue Demon Jr. and what he meant to the NWA and how vital his title reign was for the National Wrestling Alliance. And yeah. Oh, good. We sound good today. He says we sound good. That's great. But yeah, 15 years. And over those 15 years, there's been a lot of people that have come and gone that have helped out with the podcast. I would like to give a special thanks to Rob Allison, the late Rob Allison, who was, very instrumental in helping us acquire the talknwa.com domain that we used briefly there back in 2012, 2013. I want to thank, of course, Jaden and DKM. They were the first two people to help me jump on this podcast and support me. Of course, guests like David Marquez, Scrap Iron Adam Pierce, even Fred Rubenstein, Bob Trobich, Ken Taylor, Tony Givens. Really have to say, Joseph Kabibo, the Sheik. I mean, he was very instrumental in helping us acquire a lot of guests early on in the podcast. And the show really, with the contributions from the promoters and some of the wrestlers, really helped gain credibility for the show. And without those guests, even including Fred Rubenstein and Bob Trobich and Chris Ronquillo, I'm not sure that this podcast would have lasted the 15 years it has. Also want to give props to Dave Lagana, who is also very supportive while he was still part of the NWA. And of course, anyone who still listens to the show after all these years, God bless you. I do appreciate you. Thank you for being here. But let's talk about some wrestling, because I already see you guys are in the chat and we're already getting going here. So let's talk about it. I see James Bell's here. He says here, Media M50. Oh, for those who are keeping score at home today, I am drinking the Cranberry Frost sparkling ice. And let me just wet my lips here a little bit because it's delicious. Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm also going to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood later tonight, so I've got a little bit of the Celsius going on too. If anyone wants to sponsor the show, let's bring it. Let's go. James Bell, the Cranberry Frost, I actually really like it. I'm a big fan of ginger ale, especially the cranberry flavored ginger ale, and this reminds me of that. And of course, it has only 5 calories and 0 carbs for those of you who are watching your weight. Quite refreshing, quite delicious. I'd even suggest adding a little rum or vodka to it to have a real special treat. All right, let's see. Some more Willie's here. He says here, and James and Jeremy, thanks guys for being here. He already brought it up. He said he enjoyed the Kamille versus Taya match, but as an NWA follower, I wish it was a pinfall rather than a tap out. Yeah, and that kind of begs the question. We have, I'm going to turn on an extra light over here. Boop. We have this women's world champion, Kamille, who's defeated some of the greatest women's wrestlers, in the last 10 years, with victories over Thunder Rosa, victories over Serena Deep, victories over Allison Kay. Actually, no, she had a draw with Allison Kay. I rescind that one. But victories over Chelsea Green, victories over Max the Impaler, Taya Valkerie, KiLynn King. I mean, you could list the women that she has defeated in the last few months to keep this championship intact. And it's almost like a who's who of up-and-coming talented women in the world of professional wrestling. Of course, she dabbed her toes into AAA last Saturday, and in a match that saw blood shed and really a next-level type of violence, we saw that, she ended up going down, but not getting pinned, tapping out, submitting, if you will. And I don't know if that hurts the credibility as the NWA Women's Champion, considering it didn't happen in the United States. It happened in Mexico. The Burke wasn't on the line. We think about in other combat sports, sometimes you take the tap out to not risk serious injury. But more so than anything else, like, it begs the question, if that series between Taya and Kamille, if that match was still happening at the Hard Times 3, this would have been for a very interesting storyline. And I understand that there are multiple parties involved. Of course, Taya Valkyrie is working with Impact Wrestling. She, again, works with AAA Wrestling. Both of them, Taya and Kamille, have a working relationship with XPW. And, of course, they're both working in the NWA. All of these matches have taken place in different promotions, XPW, AAA, and, of course, the NWA a couple of times. But I really felt like it would have continued on with that storyline that they were building, and it actually gave Taya a rub in the right direction, that if she were to challenge again against Kamille, she would go in there having had an advantage, having forced the world champion who hasn't lost to tap out. And that would have brought a lot of momentum for Taya's way, and that would have really built up the match very nicely. It's a shame that that's not what's going to happen now. And KiLynn King is a phenomenal competitor. We've seen her bring out the best in a lot of her opponents, including Kamille and including Taya Valkerie. But it's a shame that we're not getting Taya versus Kamille. I'm kind of curious to what you guys think. I'm going to read the chat and see what you guys are going to say. Heebs is in the house. Willie with the Tyrus joke. Caution, wide load is coming. Means Tyrus is entering a restaurant. Yes. Heebs says, what's up, you bad, nasty boys? Heebs, what's going on, man? We're talking some NWA. And later tonight, I'll be in Irvine to check out Championship Wrestling presented by CarShield, because in the main event, we're going to see Carlito challenge Jordan Clearwater for the United Wrestling Network World Championship. Now, it was only a few months ago. I'm going off on tangents already. It's only a few months ago that Jordan Clearwater defeated Carlito's former tag team partner and Chris Adonis, Chris Masters. So now he's facing the other tag team partner. Also in action will be Gangrel, but we'll talk more about that later. Yeah, I will definitely be sharing some pics. Make sure you're tuned into the Instagrams and the Tickety Talks and the, all those social medias. I'll be posting everywhere and trying to promote what's happening in Hollywood, as well as getting some more eyeballs on the old social media accounts. He says, Billy likes symmetry. Are we going to get 2 triple threats at Hard Times? I don't think so. And I believe, I want to say Hisa called it out, but it might have been somebody else that there is or maybe it was Dave Scooby, one or the other, or maybe somebody else, I don't know, mentioned that those are the same weekend that Impact is having their TV tapings, and that Taya Valkerie is currently the Impact Tag Team Champion with Rosemary. So that would probably prevent her from appearing at the pay-per-view. But I mean, stranger things have happened. I mean, look, in the WWE, currently the New Japan open weight champion Carl the Machine Underground Anderson is set to be a part of the Saudi Arabia Crown Jewel pay-per-view happening next month, on the same day that he's supposed to be defending the openweight championship in Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we'll see, maybe anything can happen. Maybe we'll have Taya Valkerie at 2 shows too. I don't know. I'm probably not, but what a Carl the Machine Gun Anderson, a guy that I've watched since he held this title, since he came to California and teamed with Joey Ryan to win the NWA tag team titles. Carl the Machine Gun Anderson in the last year has worked for New Japan Pro Wrestling, has worked for Impact Wrestling, has worked for AEW, has worked for New Japan Strong, he's worked for the and worked for the WWE. That guy, man, what a charmed life. And I know, like, hey, look, for every, peak, there's a valley. And, I know he was laid off, he was fired, and now he's working back there again. But, man, what a hot commodity Anderson and Gallows have turned out to be, part of the Bullet Club, part of the OGs or original club, whatever they're called. Incredible. Just crazy. James Bell says, Kyle hinted possible addition of Chelsea Green. I mean, it could be Chelsea Green. I mean, at the last Power taping, both Cardona seemed to hint that he was trying to finagle something with Chelsea, so who knows? Willie says Kamille is a real NWA Worlds Women's Champion, and that's 100% fact, Jack. You can't back that up. You can back it up, but you can't argue that fact. But I tend to wonder for how much longer. Medium 5 is in the house. He says, oh, shizzle, I have to get on that Lamb grid and watch Championship Wrestling from Hollywood again. Oh, the Lamb grind. Yeah. Lamb is my guy. I am a Lamb Sum guy, and he is dedicated to watching all things United Wrestling Network, including Memphis and Championship Wrestling presented by CarShield. And they're doing some big things. They're going to be in Arizona next month at a in December at a bigger arena for their Red Carpet Rumble. I'm hoping to be a part of that as well. Heebs is on a deep dive with the Sawmill binge on YouTube. Cahagas versus Wolfie D and Chris Michaels versus Wardell Walker was the last episode. Wardell Walker, man, that guy is a great wrestler, but do not ask him to come on your podcast because it might inconsequently put a bullet in the head of the podcast for several years. Cardummy, not Cardona. That's awesome. The AAA match with Kamille and Taya was better than the NWA match in my view. Love the blood spot. Well, yeah, and they have a lot more freedom to do some of those things in AAA. Of course, they're gonna push the button in AAA, and Taya gets so much rope because of what she has done for AAA in the past, being a part of Perros Del Mar, and how much she carried that division, the Reinas division, in the past. Media M5 says, I now can watch Memphis and Hollywood. Man, I miss those shows. Effing loved when Hollywood was in the NWA. Wish they would return, but Memphis is filling that void. Yeah, I do believe if you like Memphis, to me, Heebs brought up the Sawmill. Memphis to me is a lot like the old Sawmill days. Like, the wrestling is pretty good. It's not always great, but it feels like it's building up to something. And who knows where Memphis will be. We're only talking about 3 or 4 years into Memphis. Where will they be in 5 years? Where will they be in 10 years? And they're building slowly in the right way. Like, the venue that they're at, that's their venue. They own that venue. They have a great deal with the channel, the station that they're on. They bring in some big name talents, but not all the time and not to the detriment of the growth of the company. But like, they've had they've had Rhino, they've had Heath Slater, they've had Nick Aldis and Mickey James, they've had Kamille and Tom Latimer, Chris Adonis. They've brought in folks, Lance Archer, Lance Hoyt from AEW. They brought in Marco Stunt from AEW, or formerly of AEW. They've tried to build up that promotion, and I really appreciate the small step process. 10 years ago, being at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, we talked about the Alliance Guys podcast has been in existence for 15 years. Well, much of my early content came directly from interviewing people at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And for every guy that you never heard of, there was a guy like Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, the TMDK, who would go on to become WWE superstars, Willie Mack, Peter Avalon. I talked to before he was on this podcast or the Alliance Guys podcast, I would talk to Kevin Frazier, formerly Kevin Douglas, anytime I could get a chance, because the guy was a great promo. Scorpio Sky. I mean, we got to talk to all those guys. But back then, they weren't big household names. They weren't wrestling on, in front of 10,000 people. No, those guys were just working the indies. And I feel like that's what you're getting with Memphis Championship Wrestling, or Championship Wrestling from Memphis, whatever they're calling it. United Wrestling Network, by and by, Hollywood has been upgraded over the last few years. If you guys weren't aware, at one point there was 3 separate programs taping for the United Wrestling Network. You had Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Atlanta, and Championship Wrestling from Arizona. And what they did is they had 3 separate budgets. They were on 3, multiple television networks. Hollywood having a lot of, basically getting a lot of different channels throughout the United States. Atlanta was on the Peachtree channel, which I guess has clearance in Toronto and Canada. And there was a lot of the United Wrestling Network was happening, but they decided to narrow its focus and heighten its intensity. And you're seeing a better product because of that. They're bringing in bigger names like Invictus Cash. They have, of course, Jordan Clearwater is their world champion. They've been bringing in top tier talent, Frankie Kazarian, like we said, Chris Adonis, Carlito. They really have enhanced the talent, and the wrestling's gotten a lot better. They are filming in Irvine, but they're also doing shows at the Commerce Casino in Hollywood. They're doing shows, and they have some set for Arizona. And, I think the goal at some point is to be back in Atlanta at some point. But I think it's pretty cool that all this is happening. And again, it's a process. They weren't there, 15 years ago. They weren't doing all this. This is an invention of the last few years. So things take time to build up, just like the NWA is taking time to build up. And that's one thing we have to keep in mind is all this wrestling is happening. And these are baby steps. We're talking 5 years. 5 years in total that the NWA has been owned by Billy Corgan, but really it's only the last 3 years that they've been running like a regular programming, regular shows, and they took the entire pandemic off, the pandemic pause, if you will. So we'll get to more of that stuff in a little bit. Dave Scooby brings up a great point. Chelsea and Max versus Pretty Empowered. That'd be a great tag team. Or Maddie and Misa Kate. Man, I just watched that match today, and I was really impressed. Now, I've always been impressed with Maddie. Misa Kate has always been pretty aggressive in the ring, too. And they really matched up well with Pretty Empowered. Plus, it gives us a break. And again, I hate saying this because I really do like Allison Kay. Marty Bell is great, too. But if we're seeing them every pay-per-view challenging Pretty Empowered and the titles just change hands every other pay-per-view, it gets... what's the point? It's meaningless. I do like the fact that they're hopefully are going in a different direction and hopefully having different challengers for the pay-per-view Hard Times 3. We don't know yet. We'll see. Media says, right, agreed. Would love to see more championship wrestling from in general in different states. Bring it back like the NWA Tharp did with flagships. It could be. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath for it. I know that there was talks. Gosh, I forgot what state it was, but there's talks for more wrestling to be coming, that's for sure. And Media says, yep, that's how I learned of all of them. In Drake from Before Impact. Yeah, sorry, I kind of muddled your point there. But yeah, Drake was there in the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He was actually went by Sean Ricker. In fact, if you were watching SmackDown, I think it was Friday night, they even alluded to him being a long way from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And I thought that was so cool because you don't normally hear mainstream wrestling giving publicity to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. AEW has a lot of talents that came directly from there. Impact has used talents that have come directly from there. And you never really hear that Championship Wrestling from Hollywood buzz. I really think they should get more credit than they do. Heap says, I really hope Maddie and Misa get a title shot at the pay-per-view. It would be fresh. Exactly. Agreed 100%. And Media says he's behind those oddball tag teams. Yeah. And really, and to be perfectly honest, I would rather see Maddie and Misa get the shot at this point because they have the momentum going their way. But Chelsea Green and Max the Impaler was a great odd combo. And I wouldn't mind seeing them get some more run as a tag team, especially because when you add the Sinister Minister into the mix and the Matt Cardona, it gets very, very odd. And yeah, and Jeremy says he popped when he heard Hollywood get a rub from the WWE. And they should. I mean, geez, Adam Pearce, who is they don't give him an official title. He's just a WWE official. But I mean, technically, he's like the voice of the office, right? Like he's the guy. And yes, he spent his formative years in the NWA, but he was very much a part of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I mean, his face is on one of the damn belts, for crying out loud. So yeah, it was pretty cool. James, no, I did not see the interview. I did hear about it where he kind of alluded to maybe appearing at the Royal Rumble in 2023. I don't hate that idea, to be perfectly honest. Last year we saw Melina show up for the pay-per-view just after wrestling in the NWA. And then Mickie James, of course, who was the Impact Women's Champion, appeared at the pay-per-view. I don't hate the idea of NWA talent being recognized as such and entering the Royal Rumble. I don't know that anything will happen of it, but I mean, look, and I've said this 100 times, I'm not the biggest Nick Aldis fan, but I would pop like crazy if I saw him show up in the Rumble and just have a decent outing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want him to win the whole thing, but if he went out there and, eliminated some veterans and looked really good in the ring, like, that'd be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I think that'd be pretty cool. Okay. So let's see. We have a big show, the big show in front of us tonight. So we have, we have a non-title match And I am looking forward to seeing Matt Taven and Trevor Murdoch, TM versus MT. Matt Taven has quite the repertoire. He's a former Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion. He's a former CMLL NWA middleweight champion. He's obviously former IWGP Tag Team Champion, former Impact Tag Team Champion, and former Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion. And if he steps in the ring with Trevor Murdoch, who is our World's Heavyweight Champion, I know that they're going to have a good match, a solid match. I don't think Matt Taven is the guy that I would put in the ring with Trevor Murdoch, but I know he is going to have an efficient, fun match. And who knows, maybe he can score some points with the Office, looking good, challenging Trevor. I kind of wish it was Matt Taven going after Scion. I feel like that match would be more compelling and more interesting. But, again, Taven is a former World's Heavyweight Champion in other promotions. And hopefully this can kind of jog the memory of some of those fans who might have forgotten. And maybe we'll see Matt Taven get a little bit more better exposure in the NWA. Now, I know that they just made their debut in AEW, they being the Kingdom with Taven, Bennett, and Kanellis. So who knows what's going to happen. Maybe they're not going to be available to the NWA going on much further. But it sure would be fun to see them back in the NWA. I really felt like Taven and Bennett, despite working with Impact, really, when they were in the NWA, really brought it. Had a lot of charisma and excitement. And if their days in the in Impact are done, which that's what is being reported, and that they've maybe perhaps signed a deal with AEW, if it's not just a one-off, hopefully they still can have time to work with the NWA. There's a lot of indie talents out there. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of talents working with AEW that are still allowed to take independent bookings. So we'll see if maybe that will still remain for Taven and Bennett, but I guess we won't know until we know. Let's see some of the comments. Has Jax Dane ever wrestled Trevor Murdoch? No, Willie, not to my knowledge. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now because you brought up a great question. I think they've shared the ring together. I know that they've been in the same matches together, but usually as partners, not as opponents. But as I'm looking right here on the trusty dusty cage match Internet Wrestling database, Crimson and Murdoch tag teamed against Dane and Plunkett. And then, of course, they were in that number one contenders battle royal. So they haven't had a direct one-on-one match. They have, faced off against each other before. But no, yeah. I would love to see that match. I would love to see it for the World's Heavyweight Championship. We know Jax Dane, by request of Chris Silvio, I would have to say Jax Dane TM. It is a trademark expression now. So we say the Grand Slam champion Jax Dane TM has certainly earned that right to face Trevor Murdoch. And let's be honest, we talk about hoss fights all the time. I don't think there's a bigger hoss fight in the NWA than Jax Dane versus Trevor Murdoch. Those two good old boys would get in the ring and do some serious damage to one another, to our enjoyment, to our benefit. And I don't know that there's a better test for Trevor Murdoch in the NWA than Jax Dane. Heap says, jokes aside, Tyrus would get a crazy Funkasaurus pop at the Royal Rumble. 100%. He's one of those guys that I would definitely pop the crowd. And it doesn't matter if we like him. And it doesn't matter how good he is in the ring. That gimmick was over at the time. And it's one of those feel-good type of gimmicks. So, yeah, I agree. I think he would. But Willie will tell you that Tyrus is only good at picnics or banquet dinners. And he brings up, I'd love to see a loser leaves town with Mayweather Jax just so the feud can end. Yeah, I mean, same here, man. I love Jax Dane. I can't state that enough. I'm not the world's biggest Crimson fan, but Mayweather does have a place in the NWA. I just would rather see those two guys go their separate ways. It was Mayweather who caused Jax Dane to lose the title to Scion in the first place. Let's not forget, though, Jax Dane used his championship buy-in after pummeling Mayweather. After a loss to Mayweather, he pummeled the then champion, injured his leg, and then forced a tap out to win the title. So I'm with that. Terry McDermott, hello, sir. I haven't seen you on here for a while, Terry. I hope you're doing well. Glad you could make it here today. We're talking some NWA, of course, as always. Jeremy says that Jack Stane had his best match this past weekend on USA. Definitely my pick for match of the year. We should probably do a whole alliance, summit and talk about our matches of the year this year. Maybe that's what we'll do in December. He gets all the stars. Yeah, big fan of Jack Stane. But to answer your original question, Willie, I don't think they've had. Well, according to Cage Match, they haven't had a one-on-one match. Next up, we know that we're gonna have Angelina Love in action, and they also showed Angelina Love on the poster with Miss Chelsea Green too. So maybe they'll be squaring off. They didn't say who she's wrestling against. I don't know if it's a surprise challenge. I don't know what the circumstances are here. But again, Chelsea Green is on the flyer. I don't know if that's because she's cutting a promo or if she's going to be wrestling. But if I were to guess, I would say it's going to be some sort of challenge match between the two to get some sort of positioning for an upcoming title match or something. Excuse me. Willie says Kamille versus Vipers would be a great match. I'm going to see Vipers tonight, I believe. She's on the poster for Championship Wrestling presented by Car Shield in Irvine tonight. But she's not really a part of the NWA, and I don't think she's being considered, at least now. I mean, they're starting to put together a pretty decent roster. Of course, they can always add more. But, as it states right now, I mean, they have a pretty complete roster, and they're finding it difficult to just have regular talent show up on a consistent basis. I mean, when's the last time we saw Paola Blaze, right? Misa Kate, we haven't seen her in a long time before Saturday. And then Maddie seems to get some TV time every now and then. The other member of Pretty Empowered, I think Roxy, I don't know what her name is, but she hasn't been seen around in a while. So it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, Willie says Angelina Love, the Trailer Park Tramp. Willie, you don't like Angelina Love, do you? He says they need to go into something with Angelina Love or cut her loose, eating up too much TV time and not having a storyline. I agree with that. I don't know where the value is with Angelina Love. Like, I initially thought if they used her like they used Melina, putting her into matches with some of the younger talent, helping to season them while developing whatever storyline they have next for her. But I don't feel like they've done anything to really benefit Angelina Love, and I don't see where it's gotten better because of her. Nobody likes Angelina. Maybe she should be in the Loser Leaves Town match. He says that Soraya gave Paola Blaze a shout out on Talk is Jericho last week. That's cool. I don't really listen to Talk is Jericho. I have caught a few clips. I heard his interview with one of the members of the Acclaimed, Bowen, but I don't know. I Paola Blaze was very interesting on paper for the NWA. I don't feel like she was a good enough wrestler to be in the ring, but if she could get some more seasoning in, she would be great because she has a value outside of pro wrestling. Hopefully it peeps more eyeballs into the product. I mean, it's the same argument that they make for Tyrus all the time. Well, how many people see Tyrus on Fox News? Okay, well, how many people saw Paola Blaze on the Real Housewives of wherever she was? Media M5 says, personally, I don't care for her either as a person. Probably fantastic, but yeah, I hope she loses. Yeah, I don't know her, right? I don't know anything about her. She's never been one of my favorites. Willie says, NWA Pro Wrestling needs more women's tag teams instead of putting together tag teams. I don't disagree with that, and there are some pretty decent women tag team wrestlers out there. They just need to be contacted, booked, and paid, But it's a matter of, does the NWA want to do that? There is a cost base for everything in pro wrestling, and just because it would look good for TV or look good for a pay-per-view to have, Pretty Empowered take on you know, the Hollywood Blondes or whatever Raylan and Heather Monroe are called. It would be a great match and it would be a lot of fun, but how much does it cost to book them? And using them versus using Maddie and Misa, what's the difference in terms of drawing? Like, is it going to get that more people to watch? How many more pay-per-views are you going to sell? And I'm not trying to be a jerk because I very much like Heather Monroe and Ray Lynn as a tag team. But you know, it has to make sense. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Heebs is right. Yeah, Paola needs a year at Tom's school before she's on TV again. And, like, I want her to be good. Like, I do. I think she'd be a great addition to the NWA, especially if they're trying to lean into a more Latino, Hispanic audience. You know, I think there's a lot of positive with Paola Blaze, but she just needs to get better in the ring. Media M5 says, won't say much, but when you're getting near free production for your podcast, aren't thankful, then just decide to run. Yeah, lose a match or 200. Media, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Try that again. No disrespect intended. I'm just not sure what you're saying there. I won't say much, but when you're getting near free production for your podcast, aren't thankful, then just decide to run. Yeah, lose a match or 200. Wrestling with Emily says a year at the very least, and even then, Atlanta Valley manager. I mean, look, if you did like some intergender tag team wrestling, like maybe La Rebellion with Paola Blaze versus, I don't know, Matt Taven, Maria Callis, and Mike Bennett. I don't know. What is up, Rosville? Haven't seen you around for a while, my man. Hope everything's well with you. Willie Bowen says Pretty in Power versus Miranda Gordy and Lacey Von Erich would be a great match. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Lacey Von Erich, I'm a big Lacey Von Erich fan. I haven't seen her wrestle in several years, but Miranda Gordy, I heard there was some heat involved with Miranda Gordy, and I don't really know details, so I won't get into anything further. But it's, you know, they had the one match, the what they call them, the fabulous Free Babes had one match in the NWA and then gone. Next up, we're going to have a matchup. Joe Alonzo versus Kerry Morton. Now, Joe Alonzo, if he hasn't grown on you yet as a competitor for the NWA, man, he definitely should. He's the guy that's on Twitter saying, I will sign a contract with a wrestling company this year. This guy is manifesting his own destiny. And when you put this guy into a ring with Kerry Morton, well, I, for one, would love to see him mop the floor with Kerry Morton. I'm not a big Kerry Morton fan. Joe Alonzo has a lot of moxie, and his matches with Scion that have aired on the NWA have been pretty good. And I would like to see what's next for him. I really do want to see Joe Alonzo become more of a staple with the NWA, and hopefully see him kind of evolve into, you know, a mid-card junior heavyweight for them. I mean, right now I feel like that's Rhett Titus, but Joe Alonzo could certainly be that guy. Dave Scooby says a power couple tournament, mixed tag matches, just don't have a title for it. There you go. I mean, and that could almost be like a series, right? That could be like a, hey, this is what we're doing on USA this season, is the mixed tag tournament, without it really having a title, but just establishing, creating a women's or a mixed tag team division without really having a title, not really having to keep it if they don't want to. Oh, shit. Okay, well, we're going to play that. He says, unpopular opinion, Miranda Gordy is just a last name. Isn't very good. Green, north of 30. Give it up, people. I mean, where's the lie? She's a sweetheart. But I don't know that I'm going to base my entire wrestling company on her when there's better alternatives already on the roster. Rosville says Joe is nice in the ring. I'm excited to see more of him. Again, the junior heavyweight division to me is missing some of. There is a difference between a junior heavyweight and a cruiserweight. One of the most exciting things to me that WCW did in their tenure was bring in that cruiserweight division that featured talents from Japan and predominantly Mexico, which heavily featured a high lucha libre, and the puroresu style of wrestling and that hybrid lucha resu. I don't know. He could tell me if I said that right. That style where you have that mix between the high flying style from Japan and of course the high flying style from Mexico. And that was some of the most exciting wrestling to me. And I remember like watching Blitzkrieg and Rey Mysterio and Super Carlo and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, Ciclope, Damien, Seis. And it was such a fun time for me as a fan. Juventud Guerrero, Psychosis, for crying out loud. It was a lot of fun. And although the junior heavyweight division has been very solid and Homicide is a great junior heavyweight, I would love to see more of a high-flying style of junior heavyweight wrestling, more akin to the cruiserweights, more akin to Lucha Libre, or more akin to that hybrid style of the Lucha Libre Puroresu style. I think that would be a lot of fun. But that's just me. Then the next match that we have scheduled for this evening, which I think this is the main event. I'm not sure, but we get EC3 versus Mercurio. Before we get to that, also on the card we have JR Kratos versus the Question Mack. I hope Kratos just waffles them, and I love Rodney Mack. I wish Rodney Mack was free of this stupid gimmick. But I really do like JR Kratos. What he's done with New Japan Strong has been a lot of fun. He's also part of the Pro Wrestling Revolution that used to be part of the NWA many moons ago. And that is a Lucha Libre promotion based in Northern California, mostly like San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, that general vicinity. And they're bringing in some stars from Pro Wrestling Noah, and they are having this this inter-promotional type feud. Not really a feud, but just bringing talents in from Japan and talents from Mexico. And JR Kratos is actually going to be facing somebody from All Japan Pro Wrestling or Pro Wrestling. No, I'm not sure which one. Coming up on their November show. Kratos is really killing it outside of the NWA. He's another guy. Gosh, just pull the trigger on him, man. I want to see him go beat the crap out of Sion. I want to see him go win the TV title. Do something with him. Let me have some fun wrestling. Quit putting these guys on the roster and just putting them in stupid, ridiculous matches. I don't need to see Question Mack versus JR Kratos. Give me JR Kratos versus Jax Dane for number one contender for the World's Heavyweight Championship. It's ridiculous. Sorry, nose itching. James Ball says Homicide's new finishing move is the chalk line. That's pretty good. Dave Scooby says Jay Spade hopefully makes his return at Hard Times 3 and to go after the junior heavyweight title, or maybe he'll be at the show the next night. What is it? I have it here on the computer. The Revolution Rumble, because that is a Wildcat event. I mean, they both are. They're both they're NWA and Wildcat events, but that would be more fitting for the other show. Rosville says the NWA needs a booking committee. They have one. His name is Billy Corgan. No more three-ways, no battle royals. They haven't done a battle royal in a while. They haven't done a general battle royal in a while. But I'm not disagreeing with you on either one of those points. He says there's always been one or two poopy angles every season that they sink so much TV time into. This season, it's the question mark. I mean, that's 100% right. Like, imagine what they could be doing with this time. Like, why am I seeing more promos for Jax Dane and Chris Silvio on Twitter than I am on the actual program? Why haven't we seen any training montages with Brady Pierce and Rush Freeman getting ready to take on the Fixers, Wrecking Ball Gursky and Jay Bradley? There should definitely be some Rocky montages going on here with the U.S. champions, right? I don't know. It's boring. And you're wasting all this time with an Aaron Stevens who looks very uninspired in this angle. You've got the Question Mock, who is a very cheap imitation of Josephus. You got the Question Mack, who, let's be honest, he looks frustrated to be in the situation. I don't know how anyone watches this and says, hey, this is great programming. Like, who's going to buy this crap? If you're shopping this show to a national television company, who's going to buy it? And I'm trying to be positive about the NWA, but this is a black eye for pro wrestling. This is the kind of stuff that they could just get away from. How about, I don't know, how about just let Rodney Mack be Rodney Mack? How about have Rodney Mack go out there and fight JR Kratos in a straight up match, and let's see who the tougher dude is, instead of all this other shenanigans? It doesn't make sense. Roswell says all Billy has to do is YouTube the NWA archives and get with the program. Yeah, I mean, like, look, the you're not wrong. You're not wrong. 12 tag team match at the 74th. Okay, you're right. You're right. All right, Roswell. Well, thanks for your contributions, man. We'll see you on Thursday night, hopefully. He says, for real, let's see the Spectaculars beat someone before the pay-per-view. They've done nothing with the Spectaculars. I don't think they've won a... Well, maybe they won the qualifying match to go, but what else have they done? Media M5 says, if it wasn't for the pass, I would never order this. And that's the thing, like, even the pay-per-view, I'm kind of 50-50 on if I would actually pay money for it. Like, look, I'm going to New Orleans, guys. I'm going to Chamelais, or however you say it. I'm going to go to Hard Times, and I'm going to go to the show after the next night. But I'll be honest, the real reason why I'm going is to meet up with my boy D-Cam, who I've known for 16 plus years, and this will be the first time I've actually got to meet him in person. If D-Cam wasn't going, I wouldn't be going. And we're not going because of the wrestling. We're going to meet each other. The card doesn't look great to me, and like I want to like it, right? There's some matches that I'm excited about. I would have rather have Taya versus Kamille. Honestly, the triple threat match I don't hate for the world title. I don't hate it, but again, like, it doesn't feel fresh because we just had Trevor Murdoch and Tyrus in the ring together, and before that we just had Matt Cardona beating Trevor Murdoch for that title. So it feels still like very stale. Like, how cool would it be if it was somebody we hadn't heard of, or somebody who earned it and deserved it, like a Tom Latimer versus Trevor Murdoch, or a Jack Stain versus Trevor Murdoch. That's kind of where I would like to see it go. But again, when you're only doing part-time wrestling, I guess I wouldn't have had a problem if Trevor Murdoch had wrestled Tyrus once or twice after the 74th anniversary show. But now we're like 5 months later. It just seems tired and old. I don't know. Terry McDermott says, the matches I go see in Fountain Hill, Arkansas are better than the NWA matches. He says, is someone going to record your guys' first look at each other? I mean, we see each other all the time, but we haven't actually, been next to each other. That man gave me this TV title that's right here. That man gave me the 10 pounds of gold. That guy is, he knows my kids by first name. It's going to be cool. It's going to be cool to see him. It's going to be cool to hang out. No, we're not going to embrace. I mean, I might hug the guy, but I'm not going to kiss him, I promise. James says the second night in New Orleans is scheduled to have a battle royal, and it's going to have a Wildcat title match too. Dave Scooby says, going to New Orleans for the food and to see some friends as well as to see some wrestling will be the first time of 3 times of being in New Orleans. I'll be sober. Damn, Mardi Gras. Yeah, I've never been to Mardi Gras either. The last time I was in New Orleans, I was like 12 years old, and we went on a steamboat up the Mississippi River, which was cool. But I never had that experience in Mardi Gras. But yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I do believe that the NWA is heading in the right direction. They're starting to make the right moves. We are getting towards the end of the year, okay? There doesn't appear to be anything after November. So I don't know when the next TV taping is. Guys like Gary Horn might have that information, but it's not like the NWA has been presenting it to the mainstream. We don't know if they're going to have any more episodes of Power outside of these Power trips, right? Because the pay-per-view is in November. and then the next night they're taping for the Power Trip shows. And those Power Trip shows, you know, again, they're not exclusive to Fight. They're also broadcasted on YouTube as well. So they could use that to just stretch out the rest of the year from November to December and maybe start TV tapings in January. But that's a lot of idle time for the NWA, and I don't know if that's the best use of their time, being idle as it goes into the new year. But Billy has also said that they're looking to run more in 2023. So hopefully we're not doing a quarterly pay-per-views. Maybe they'll do some more live events in between the pay-per-views, which I think would be a great idea, especially if they're taping it for exclusive content for Fight, but as well as to kind of keep things a little bit fresher for Power and for USA. I mean, if there's a way that you could just do one of the shows taped all the way out, and then the other show could be taped monthly, I think that would be so much more beneficial to all parties involved. But that's not me. That's the NWA. Media M5 says, seems like Billy's treating the NWA more like a TV show than a pro wrestling show on TV. Everything with him is about actor credits. It's starting to reflect his show talent-wise. I don't know that I agree with that, Media. I do think he's running it like a wrestling television show and not a wrestling promotion. And the benefit of that is, you know, it keeps costs down. Look at the overhead. There's a lot of talent that they use, and not everyone's from Nashville, Tennessee. And, you know, they bring in talents from California. You know, they bring in talents. Chris Adonis is from California. Captain Yuma is a California guy. Peter Avalon is from California. You have talents from Atlanta still, or the East Coast. You know, there's a lot of talents that are local in the Tennessee area, right? But there's talent. Jack Stain is from Texas, lives in Texas most of the time. You know, the talent travels the Midwest. You know, I believe Scion is a native of Illinois. So you bring in talent from all across the country to converge in one place, and you tape 4 or 5 days of TV. You put these people up in hotel rooms for 4 or 5 days, and then you know, hopefully recover some of those expenses during the pay-per-views and merchandise, the YouTube sales or revenue, I should say, and the Fight revenue. But I don't know. I feel like it's just not going to ever grow if that's the model that they continue to use. I think you'll be stagnant like this until they decide to take the next step. And hopefully they don't wait too long to take that next step, because the fans might decide to leave before the fans might not be around for them when they are ready to take the next step. That's a great question, Heebs. We don't know how long the Fight TV contract is for. And I don't think it's ever been publicly discussed. I don't know who could answer that question. And I don't know how much money they're making from the Fight TV deal. You know what I mean? Like, it might be a pay-for-play type deal where maybe they don't pay for pay-per-view costs. I don't know. Speculation. I have no facts here. But, you know, like, a friend of mine who has a moderately successful YouTube channel told me that about 1 million views equals about, I think he said something like $7,000. And that's not consistent. That it varies. Some months it'll be higher, some months it'll be lower. But, you know, the NWA, who puts on 4 shows, or I guess 8 shows a month on YouTube, they're not getting 1 million views on each match or each show. You know, some of the higher ones have been like 20,000. So I don't know what kind of money they're making from YouTube or Fight, but I guarantee you it's not enough to pay what it's cost to running the show. And Terry brings up a good point. Like, it's very much a tax write-off. I mean, your boy Jay, let's be honest, if I win the lottery tomorrow, you would see Championship Wrestling from JCal Pro Wrestling, and JCP. There you go, baby. We're going to be Jim Crockett Promotion, JCal Promotions, because you can write it off as a business expense. You know, there's a little-known business thing that a startup business is not expected to make a profit for the first 5 years. Meaning, if you have a pro wrestling promotion and this is your tax write-off, it doesn't have to show a profit. So you could spend all the money in the world and write it all off as a loss and not cooking your books per se, but it helps your taxes. It helps with the write-offs. And if you buy 10 TVs for the studio and 6 of them go into your house, who's going to know the difference? Media says, I don't see that fight agreement lasting too long. I mean, I don't see the negative for fight. Again, how much are they paying for the show? We don't know. See, we don't know any of this, so we can't really comment on what's good, bad, or indifferent. So let's see. We talked about the shows. Now, of course, we know that Kerry Morton is going to be getting a title shot at Hard Times against, I don't have the artwork for it yet, but he's getting a title shot against Homicide. We know that the Fixers will defend the tag titles, the U.S. tag titles against the Spectaculars. We know that the national championship will be defended when Scion takes on Dak Draper. We're going to get a grudge match between EC3, Tom Latimer. We got the new updated women's title match, Kamille versus KiLynn King. We're going to see Tyrus, Trevor Murdoch, and Matt Cardona in a triple threat match for the 10 pounds of gold. And then the only match that I know has been announced for the next night, the Revolution Rumble, is the Nathan Bradley taking on Chuck Divine, who is the Wildcat Sports Revolution champion. So there is a lot to still happen. And, of course, we do know this. We do know that Trevor Murdoch will be at the 23rd anniversary of the World Legion Wrestling at the Harley Race Arena, and he will be representing the National Wrestling Alliance as the world's heavyweight champion. He is supposed to be actually wrestling that night. This will be his first defense since defeating Tyrus, I believe, and hopefully it won't be his last. But, I mean, there it is. Not a whole lot going on in the end. Oh, camera's getting out of focus there. Not a whole lot going on in the NWA at the moment. And we're seeing, we saw just recently Mr. Scion took his title defense last week in Illinois. Again, we saw Kamille challenge for the AAA Reinas championship. But we haven't seen a whole lot coming out of the NWA. Terry says, I can live without EC3. Terry, I don't hate EC3, but I kind of see where you're coming from. I think the reason why EC3 is there is because he has name value. And they're putting him in an angle where he's not in the world title picture. He's not really taking anything away from anybody else. And if Tom Latimer is successful at Hard Times 3 of beating him, Tom gets that rub. And if Tom wins, then saying, hey, Tom might be a number one contender for that world's heavyweight title or getting closer to it, it's not a far off. So a victory for Tom would be really good as far as I'm concerned. And if his push is off the back of EC3, then I'm all for it. But if EC3 wins, then contrarily, he beat one of the big guys in the NWA. And maybe it's time to start looking at him as the number one contender for Trevor Murdoch's title. And, either way you book it, you potentially have a fresher matchup for the next pay-per-view of who will face the world's heavyweight champion. EC3 has some name recognition. Again, he was an Impact World Champion. He held the NXT World Title. And although, they didn't do much with him in the WWE, I feel like there is a lot of real estate you can get out of him. And even if you're not going to put him in the world title picture, I think he can help elevate some guys. And if you want to put him in the title picture, he's a guy who certainly has a history of being successful when it comes to those big title matches. So I don't hate it. I don't love him either, but I see why he's there. Media M5 says, Fight gave a huge amount for Billy and the NWA for exclusive rights for their program. If Fight isn't seeing profit from NWA, I guess time will tell. We don't know how much money is left from Fight being used. You also have to keep in mind, none of that stuff has been publicly reported. This is just what we heard, and there could be, again, I don't know nothing. But what if Fight's like, hey, we're going to help pay for production, but we're not paying for the content? And they split the proceeds from the viewership. I don't know. Terry says he's boring. Again, I'm not disagreeing with you. He's not my favorite by any stretch, but he has value in the name. Again, he is your former Impact World Heavyweight Champion. He held the NXT World title. He's got a good look. Some people dig it. Some people really dig that whole control your narrative gimmick. I'm whatever with it. It's not a big deal to me, but I can see where other people are excited about it. Media M5 says, wouldn't mind seeing if Tom turns and joins EC3. Now, that would be interesting. You know, what I really think they should do is start clearly defining heels and baby faces for this promotion, because Tom theoretically shouldn't be a baby face, but he's getting cheered in this angle. And, you know, we were booing EC3 for saying the same things that Matt Cardona said. I just want to point that out. Yes, there's a lot to do with him, but again, they need airtime matches, live events to see things play out. Yeah, again, I agree. I agree. And I think one of the cool things that the NWA at least is going towards this direction for the pay-per-view. I mean, we're getting Nick Aldis and Odinson on pay-per-view. That's pretty cool. That's either going to help elevate Odinson or start leveraging Aldis back into the title picture again, right? If Odinson wins, if Odinson gets a victory, doesn't he become a legitimate contender for any title at that point? If you beat Nick Aldis, like the patron saint of the NWA, if you beat him, doesn't that leverage you into some sort of title picture? Scion, whoever wins the TV title? I think so. Willie Bowen says Eli Drake should be back with the NWA. Yeah. But you got to understand, he's also just appeared on SmackDown back as LA Knight. I don't think he's going to be available for the NWA. I think if Corgan had an opportunity to, he should have locked that guy up for a long, long time. And he didn't, and that's on him. But that's going to do it, guys. It is now 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 3 o'clock here Pacific. We're going to wrap things up now. Again, appreciate you guys being a part of the show today. Appreciate you guys joining us in the conversation. We'll be back. The other Alliance guys will be here tomorrow, this time right now, tomorrow, and they'll be talking about NWA USA, some fantasy booking, a lot of great content. I hope you guys stay tuned and check out the other Alliance guys. And of course, DK and myself will be back here on Thursday to talk all things POWERRR and the NWA. I hope you'll join us then. But until next time, we will see you at the matches. Thanks for checking out the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA POWERRR every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the Alliance.